Hi there. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia, and this is the Obsidian Mirror podcast. It's all of a sudden an expression just came to mind: a day late and a dollar short. Yesterday was the last quarter moon, and I actually missed the two previous lunar phases or lunar cycles as well. In the beginning, because I just didn't feel like I had it to offer, I needed to kind of get my own energy centered and grounded. And then the second time, because I felt very specifically not to, was a very kind of powerful, intuitive nudge I had that I paid attention to and respected. So even though felt like a big full moon in Sagittarius and kind of energies all around, the very specific kind of feeling that I was having was not to do a mirror gaze that day or a scrying session at all. And I went with that. And it leads me to want to bring up that fact because those decisions involved a lot of thought on my part and soul searching and self-inquiry, because my goal when I started this podcast was to maintain consistency on each lunar phase, and have some discipline around it. And then as that kind of absolute decision came under review, it was humbling. And then I had to kind of think through, like, who is it that's making me feel like I have to do this consistently? And is that something to be followed or not? Is that something within me? Is it spiritual guidance? Because I'm still learning that kind of discernment myself. And so the main reason I'm saying all this on the outset is that I really want to emphasize, like, I introduced myself at the beginning of the podcast, and it's also in the written description of this podcast, but I just want to review it now. People have anxiety and respect for mirror magic for a reason, because mirrors are portals. And if you've been listening to this podcast, there have already been examples of that where, hold on, I'm going to turn this heater off so it's not going in the background. And because they're portals, they really are not to be handled lightly. They're not parlor trick type things. And I sometimes feel that people who are drawn to the esoteric, it's a broad range of people, and sometimes people are drawn to it as if it's just sort of a game or for fun. And I really want to emphasize that, especially with something like mirror gazing, it's not a game, and it's not something that should be done lightly. And this isn't me trying to speak with any authority other than just respect for the unseen world and what we don't understand. And playing around with a game and opening up portals is something that you really, me included, and that's why I very consciously did not do the last two sessions, was because it didn't feel right. My energy either didn't feel right, or else the external energy didn't feel right. And because it's a portal, and an obsidian mirror is a powerful tool with its own spirit, especially, I mean, I'm an animist, so I believe that things have spirits like that. And an obsidian mirror, when I'm doing a gaze, I'm approaching it like this obsidian mirror is a partner and a teacher and something to be respected. And if I'm not feeling in the appropriate energy, it's best to respect that and not approach it like a game or something that is to be done lightly. So I just want to say that, because if my channel ever gains popularity beyond what I'm really envisioning right now or can imagine for myself, I don't want to be seen as someone promoting doing this kind of work irresponsibly. It's really not to be messed with. So I'll just leave it there. And also, just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into my work, it's rare for me that I do a gaze that lasts more than like 10 minutes, and 10 minutes is stretching it. I usually gaze into the mirror anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, sometimes less, because you really don't, they're powerful tools. So that's just a little bit of a glimpse into that work, or what my practice looks like when I sit down to do it. I usually light a candle, I say some prayers and make sure that things feel right before I do it. I send thanks out there for giving me responsible, helpful, archetypal images that are going to have use for people. And then I ask not to be put in a position really to have to interpret it, because I think that's where people's ego really gets in the way, and I'm trying to just share these images that I see, and you get to determine the meaning for yourself. So with that said, when I opened the mirror this morning, I just did this gaze a little while ago. The very first thing that jumped out was a very bright blue shimmering selkie, which is a water spirit. The selkie is in the tradition of sort of the Western European, Anglo-Saxon kind of genetics, right? So the selkie is a creature that is from their tradition and their experiences, and it's a water spirit. It wouldn't necessarily be considered like the Loch Ness monster, but they're related, right? Those are creatures of lore that are in a collective psyche now as a water spirit. So selkies might have meaning for you. There are lots of water spirits. The selkie's the first one that came out. And I want to honor that too, because an obsidian mirror has a relationship with water portals as well. So the selkie came out and it was sort of bright blue and shimmering. And then that became the maize god, which his name is Hunapu, and you can learn more about the Mayan maize god in the Popol Vuh, but he has a really incredible creation story that's very beautiful and vivid and abstract and meaningful. And it has a lot of personal meaning to me because I've spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I've always been fascinated with these themes, as was my dad. He was very interested in them as well, which is, I think, where I inherited that interest and respect. So to have him show up is very appropriate, because the obsidian mirror is also a tool from the Mexica people and possibly the Mayan people. I'm not sure exactly if they also used an obsidian mirror. I think they did, but correct me if I'm wrong. My mirror is from Mexico. My mirror was made in the Veracruz region. So the Popol Vuh is something that might interest you. They're full of nature spirits, and the hero twins is a theme as well that emerges in the Popol Vuh, and the hero twins are part of the maize god creation story. And so the hero twins is a theme in archetypal myth that does not just exist in Mexico. It exists in other parts of the world in ancient mythology. It's a really powerful symbol, the hero twins. And so it's a personal symbol for me as well, again, because of my own interest in history. I have twins in my family also. So the hero twins might have some meaning for you mythologically or spiritually. Then I moved away from that image, and water spirits and portals and cenotes kind of came to mind at that point. All of a sudden I saw beautiful lips, which sounds funny because they were probably just my lips being reflected in the mirror, but there was something very specific and almost audience quality to it that said beautiful lips. So I want to say that. That's also somewhat vaginal, which is interesting if we're speaking about dark pools and pools of water. That's quite a stark contrast to volcanic masculine energy that's been coming through in previous gazes. That having beautiful lips referenced, and then dark pools could be seen as archetypal feminine images, right? Vaginal, feminine, yonic or onic imagery. Then moving away from that, it moved into a flag, a very brief flag image that became an axe. So the flag moved almost immediately into axe images, and then it was showing me all kinds of stuff relative to an axe, like the blade of the axe glinting in the light, the curve of the blade of the axe. Battle axe kept coming through, battle axes, the use of axes as a weapon. Then there's that kind of trend recently, at least in the United States, about axe throwing. It's not probably very recent anymore. It's probably been around now for a while. Feels recent to me, but there's even people that collect and refurbish axes. I live in a part of the country where axes are big because logging is big, where I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest of Turtle Island. So then it was showing me two axes crossed, again, like battle axes. So that might have something to do or meaning for you. The next image that came through was kind of a pregnant womb, but that was also stretching and merging with a face in this way that was off-putting and not very pleasant. And then it was kind of showing like conjoined twins, which is kind of a play on the previous theme of the hero twins, but there was something about this pregnant womb and this merged physicality of these twins that was uncomfortable and not proper for some reason or not. I don't know what that's about. This is certainly it wasn't literal, like it wasn't showing me anything to do with the literal world of conjoined twins, but it was showing me this as a metaphor in some way that I'll try to refrain from interpreting, but it was not comfortable. And it also was showing it should not be, or that there was some sort of negative aspect to that was uncomfortable for everyone involved in that merging of physicality with a womb and a face and conjoined twins in some way. It was very uncomfortable. Then there was a period of peace and stillness after that vision sort of cleared away. And then it showed me like looking back in time, almost as if I was standing next to someone and we were gazing back in time. So like the mirror was becoming a portal back in time, and I was standing next to someone. And this is going to sound funny, but it's like it was showing me so that I would understand in what way the Christmas story with Ebenezer Scrooge and how he goes on that journey looking into his past with that angel. And so I'm not trying to say that I'm an angel or anything, but that's what it was showing, is that it was me and somebody standing next to me that I care for, and we're looking back in time through the portal of this mirror. And this was a masculine energy, and I'm just saying this wasn't representative of any literal person, but it was somebody that was shown that I care about. Like I felt love for this person, and we were looking back on his life into a room in his home. And it was very, like, I'm surprised I'm not crying, because I wanted to cry as it was happening, because I just got flooded with emotion. It was a dark room. It was a difficult look back in time. And the predominant feeling that was kind of being told to me to make sure to tell you, if this sounds or feels like you, looking back on this bedroom, it's like a room in a home that was filled with a lot of sadness and pain, almost like your bedroom or a child's bedroom. And we're looking back on this memory together, and there's a lot of pain there, and it feels very fresh, even though we're looking back in time together. And the main feeling, again, I'm kind of starting to trip over my words here, but the main feeling that I was sort of meant to say is how protected you are to look back in that room, and how safe you are, and you're surrounded by peace and love and gentleness and understanding as you look back on that memory or that period in your life, or looking back on that portal into a sad room that you were in. You maybe spent, I don't know, I'm going to refrain from, I feel like I'm not capturing it, because it really washed over me in a way that I could really feel the sorrow and the fear of really looking in that room and seeing what's there. And how your hand is being held spiritually through that process. You're safe to look in the room. There's love around you, and there's healing in you looking back. There was also a star in that room, like beyond the painful memory. There was like a star shining in the sky. So that was important for me to say too, because then as the last, what then became this dark room went away, and now all of a sudden I was looking at this interstellar womb, like the womb of a goddess or a great goddess, like the womb of a primordial spirit almost. It was really meaningful. I feel like I want to cry again because it was really comforting energy. This womb and this light shining from behind the womb in this really beautiful and comfortable way. And then the very end was no longer the star shining in the ceiling of that bedroom, but a shooting star. That's interesting. That was like a accidental word mix up that I said scar instead of star, but I don't think so, because the final image was a shooting star going across the curvature of the obsidian mirror, and it was showing also the curvature of a womb that was like interstellar, like the void state in space and the stars. It was so beautiful. I wish I could capture it, but it was like a really warm, loving, protective, feminine energy, really here to show you that you're safe to feel that sorrow that you might have stored away inside you. And looking back in this portal in time is safe to do, I guess. And so that's all. That's the end of the gaze. And like I said at the opening, this was probably less than 5 minutes. It was like a 4 minutes. That's all you need with a practice like this. So if anyone's listening to these and interested in trying to learn how to do this, I just really want to say that you really have to approach it with humility and with a strong psyche and a respect for the process of doing it, because you don't always know what's going to come through that mirror, and that's important and humbling to remember. So now I'm going to pull a couple cards and close the reading. Thank you for being here. I'm really honored to pick this work back up for this last quarter moon. And I'm just going to keep going now with less determination to be some sort of weird internal boss that's forcing me to do it every lunar phase if it doesn't feel right. That's not the boss I want to be listening to. I want to be listening to kind of a higher boss, right? Okay, so what are the cards here to close out this reading? The Lover's card. So that's right in perfection and in alignment with the hero twins. The Lover's card is an image of twins in the tarot deck. Really beautiful. Water element is represented in this version of the tarot deck, which are two water-based creatures uniting, which is so beautiful and in keeping with that water-based imagery of the corn god and water. There's all of that myth. I really recommend looking into the story of the Popol Vuh. It has meaning for you probably if you don't already know it. The Hierophant, my God, the Hierophant, which is a priestly or spiritual teacher, is a Hierophant. Really incredible. And the Page of Swords, which is a card of discretionary watching and listening and learning and taking in and observing. It can be considered spying. It can be considered a warning, like we were mentioning in this gazing practice. It's really something to be approached with a lot of caution. And I even debated during the couple cycles that I didn't do a gaze, thinking maybe I should just close out this podcast and not do any mirror gazing for a while, because I'm really feeling what a huge responsibility it is, right? So the Page of Swords might be something like that, which is also, though, the page can be a card of unseen power. So a page is a very powerful emissary, and the page, part of the page's power is that he's not recognized as powerful by a lot of people around him. So that might have meaning for you as well. The Page of Swords is one of the first cards I pulled for myself that got me on my tarot journey. and it was from the Crowley deck, which is the Princess of Swords. And that card, when I pulled that as a representative of myself and read one of the descriptions, I think it might have been Gerd Ziegler's description. I can't remember now, but I was blown away, and I remember it was like the beginning for me of my relationship with tarot. So with that, I'll close this out. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. I really appreciate it. I'm always open to feedback, and I look forward to seeing you